Good Thursday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns training camp creeping closer and closer. End of the month, they will meet and then head to Greenbrier in West Virginia to get things underway. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, the NFL guy that covers the entire league for ESPN, talking about this year's Browns team on Get Up this morning.
What's keeping you awake if you're the Cleveland Browns?
Whether the Browns can maximize the skill set of DeSean Watson. He showed a lot of rust last year. Talking to teams around the league, they weren't overly impressed with his play over 6 games, small sample size, but now he's had a full offseason. Browns have been really pleased with where he's at. They believe Watson and Kevin Stefanski will adapt to each other's skill set and bring out the best in each other, but they have to prove that.
With that, let's welcome in Quincy Carrier from Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Quincy, I think that's an important distinction. I don't question whether DeSean Watson's skills will return. The bigger question is, will Kevin Stefanski and DeSean Watson figure out a way to get the most out of DeSean Watson and tailor this offense around him?
Well, in situations like this, you have to ask yourself, who does it benefit for these two to get it right? And it benefits both of them tremendously for them to kind of work together and compromise, right? So I would lean towards the direction of, it's going to get done because it benefits DeSean Watson to listen to what Kevin Stefanski has to say and get that input there, given that he's kind of expressed that in the past. The lack of offensive minds has really influenced him in his NFL career. He wants somebody who is more of a well-thought-of mind to kind of influence what his future is going to look like. But also, if you're Kevin Stefanski, you know from experience what inconsistent quarterback play can do to a season. So you want to make sure that you're putting DeSean in the best possible position to be successful and to put DeSean in situations that are familiar while also adding some things. So I think it benefits both parties to get together and work together. The complaints that I've heard about Kevin Stefanski usually are things that we kind of like infer, like play calling or stuff like that. It's not necessarily like, oh, he has a big ego and he's not willing to let this or that. That's not anything that I've heard from anybody who's worked with Kevin Stefanski. So I think they'll be able to kind of collaborate, put their minds together, and create an offense that works for both of them. And I don't think that will be that difficult, given that I think DeSean wants to move towards some of the stuff that Kevin's doing. I think Kevin wants to move towards some of the stuff that DeSean's doing. They'll just meet in the middle naturally. Yeah,
and again, I agree with you. I just think it's an important distinction. I don't think there's a question about DeSean Watson's talents being there. They're going to come back. The question is, do you put him in a situation where you can maximize his talents? And I agree with you. I think they will. Along those lines, this is from Game Day NFL. All-time NFL completion percentage, minimum 1,500 attempts. Joe Burrow checks in at 1 with over 68%. Drew Brees, 67.7 is second. Jimmy Garoppolo, 67.6 third. DeSean Watson, 67% completions, 4th best all-time as far as completion percentage goes. The other thing, linking that back up to Kevin Stefanski, he hasn't worked with a quarterback as talented as DeSean Watson. We've seen what he's done with Baker Mayfield, and I know there's a bunch of people that think Baker Mayfield is this great talent. Baker Mayfield is at best an average NFL quarterback. Jacoby Brissett's an average NFL quarterback, a high backup. DeSean Watson, when his first 3 seasons, all pro.
Yeah, he was very good. I mean, like, if you compare his first 3 seasons to Pat Mahomes, it's a step below Pat Mahomes, but like, you know how good a step below Pat Mahomes is? It's up there, right? Like, it's only 10 touchdowns and like 7 interceptions away. Again, that's a clear step below, but it's not that bad. Considering who you're comparing him to. Now, completion percentage, I wouldn't use that as like a good metric for quarterbacks, because like Jimmy Garoppolo can sneak up in there at 3rd with 67.6, and nobody thinks of Jimmy Garoppolo. It's like we think of Joe Burrow, Drew Brees, or even DeSean Watson. Sometimes that can be an easily manipulated stat, but this is where he was considered. I think a lot of people have forgotten, because when DeSean Watson left, there were guys immediately who took his spot, right? There was Justin Herbert. There was Lamar Jackson was already arrived when Deshaun Watson was still playing, but Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert mainly, they kind of took this space. And then Trevor Lawrence last year, they took all of this space for the young up-and-coming guys while Pat Mahomes matured, while Josh Allen matured into what they were going to be. And that kind of left Deshaun Watson lost in the shuffle, because before, if we go back to 2020, he was in that conversation, not just with the Josh Allen, but really with Pat Mahomes, as, you know, different styles, of course, but high levels of quarterback play, or a potential of quarterback play.
Yeah, and I won't argue with you about Garoppolo. The one thing is, Garoppolo plays in conference championship games, so if you complete the football, good things happen for the team. It's not because of I'm not saying it's because of Garoppolo. I'm saying
congratulations to the 49ers.
There you go.
They play a lot of good games. They're a very good team.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt. They replaced him with Mr. Irrelevant and got better. I don't know what that says for Jimmy Garoppolo.
I can't argue with you, but again, he's played in conference champion. I just want to see conference championship games again. That's all. All right. Let me ask you this: what do you think the ceiling for the 2023 Browns is? What's the floor for the 2023 Browns?
I think this is a team that, if everything stays relatively healthy, they're probably a between 10 to 12 win team. I think they're going to have bad habits to shake off on defense, and they're going to have some growing pains on offense here and there. They're not going to be a flawless team. And this is a team that you would feel more comfortable if they ended the season much stronger than they started. They might start the season, about 500, but they could end the season on a little bit of a run. That would make you feel better, because they have a lot of things to shake off from last year and a lot of things to implement that weren't there last year, right? Like, this isn't a team that I expect to hit the ground running and looking like a Super Bowl contender week 1. But I think by the time we get to week 6, week 7, we should start to see these things start to form and them branch themselves from a average to a pretty good NFL team to a real serious contender by the second half of the season.
All right. This is from 2022 score rates on drives when losing. This is from Warren Sharp, Sharp's Football. Number 1, the Chiefs, 53.7%. Bengals, number 2, 51.8%. Bills, 51.4%. That's Mahomes, Burrow, and Allen. And again, these are scoring drives when you're losing. Browns down at 27, 32.4%. Interestingly enough, the Eagles with Jalen Hurts were 30.2. But again, Deshaun Watson, we keep going back and forth about what I want to see from Deshaun Watson. I want to, and we've talked about it, you and I have talked about this. I want teams to be like, oh, they got the football late in the game, and we have to deal with Deshaun Watson in this offense. That's how you can define if Watson is doing his job.
Well, and it goes back to one of the main things we were talking about, them adding to this team in the offseason, which was explosive playability. That's what they don't have. Like, even with the Eagles, they have some really good players on that deep offense, but they're not the most explosive offense. That's why they're low in that percentage. But then you look at like Joe Burrow, you look at Pat Mahomes, you look at Josh Allen. I mean, like, most of the highlights you see are big plays from those guys. So that's what gets you back in games where you're losing, right? Being able to score quickly. That's why Elijah Moore is here. That's why Marquise Goodwin is here. That's why Cedric Tillman was drafted, right? Because the Browns have the pieces to move up the field slowly and methodically, and that's great when you're winning football games. But when you're behind, you need a quick strike ability. You need to be able to go downfield and be a little bit more explosive. So that's why they brought those guys in there, to get those numbers up. Yes, Deshaun Watson is going to be an important factor in that. Obviously, quarterback play is a huge factor in that. But as we saw where the Eagles rank, it's not just quarterback play that affects that. It's also the weapons you have and the options you have because of those weapons. Are you explosive? How many explosive shots are you willing to take? And sometimes, like the Eagles, I think that number might be artificially low because they rely so much on that defense that they just don't feel like they need to be that explosive. Or maybe they just don't be losing that much. like that might also be the case.
Yep.
So, but it's about explosive ability. It's about being able to maintain leads. And I think that's what the Browns kind of focused on, right? Get that explosive ability, get the football back by having a better defensive line, and be able to create more drives, more opportunities for explosives.
Yep, I'm with you. I think the Eagles were leading most of the time as well. All right, so this is kind of interesting. Browns have been linked to Myles Jack, former Steelers, Jaguars linebacker, that according to NFLRumors.com. And there was we'll get to him in a minute. There was also a signing, minor one. The Browns signed cornerback Thacarius Keys, a one-year contract. They waived center Dawson Deaton, an injury designation. Keys, third NFL year out of Tulane, drafted by the Chiefs. 13 career games, 1 start for the Chiefs. Also time with the Colts, the Bears. Was on the practice squad of the Texans, Falcons, and Ravens. So a depth piece, maybe a special teams guy if he works out. Myles Jack, Quincy, I don't see the Browns bringing somebody in free agency right now. I think they probably, if they want to address that, I think they wait until that massive roster cut-down day that's coming to get to 53 with everybody. There's going to be 900, I mean literally 900 free agents.
Yeah. We got to come up with a different name for free agents of the class of Myles Jackson, right? Because you hear free agent and you think it's like, oh, we're going to give this guy $8 million or $12 million and he's going to be a fierce role on this team. This is more of a flyer. Like Myles Jack is definitely more in the flyer part of free agency. He tried to stick on with the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. Wasn't really that effective last year. And once you get to that point, you're just kind of a tryout guy. So they might be interested in bringing him in. I just don't think it really changes anything if they do. He's just on here to try to get a roster spot more than like, oh, we're going to bring Myles Jack in because he's going to secure this position. I don't think they have any plans for Myles Jack as far as that goes. I think it would just be, hey, can he help us on special teams? Maybe we'll see what he does in the preseason. More of a trial guy than a real free agent.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break. Some national folks picking the winners of the AFC North. We'll tell you who they pick. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. TryC has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide TryC students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. TryC, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. ESPN from the Get Up show, picking the winners of the AFC North.
Fowler, explain the Steelers pick. I think that's a surprise to a lot of people.
Expect Pittsburgh to make a Willie Mays Hayes type jump here, Dan, in year 2 of the Kenny Pickett era. Steelers have 10 seasons since 2010. 10 winning seasons. I believe that's more than anybody else in the AFC North. The precedent is there to get it done under Mike Tomlin. We know that defense is going to be good with T.J. Watt and Minka Fitzpatrick and Cam Hayward. Now the offense is pretty well loaded up. They spent the last few years building up the offensive line, the receiving core, running backs. They have it all. Now the question is, can Pickett get it done? But he showed, even without gaudy stats last year, fourth quarter and some big games, he was really savvy and poised. I think that's going to help him make the jump.
All right, well, we'll see. I mean, the stats were not gaudy, that's for sure. I think they had 12 passing touchdowns, so that's going to have to come up.
That low?
I would think, if Pittsburgh's going to make Fowler's prediction come true. But never underrate Mike Tomlin, that's for sure.
And Quincy, we've talked about this. I'm just not seeing it with the Steelers. They picked everybody with Browns. Two were on the Bengals, one was on the Ravens. Jeremy Fowler, who national NFL guy for ESPN, picked the Steelers. Whenever you tell me there's poise and savvy and guile, you're just telling me there isn't enough talent. I don't know what to tell you. We've watched this.
How many mediocre quarterbacks have we tried to act like was Tom Brady? How many guys? Like, we're like, oh, well, you know, Tom didn't have these things. Like, yeah, Tom's Tom. He had something else going for him. But it's just the power of branding, right? You know, for those y'all in the audience. That's the power of branding, because if Kenny Pickett would wear 8 in the Cleveland Browns jersey, we would not be caring about what Kenny Pickett doing, and then we would be having the debate on whether we want Kenny Pickett to stay here or not. You know what I mean? But you put him in a Pittsburgh jersey, they've never been through this as a fan base, where they had the young quarterback that they're not really sure of, but they want to work really well, and you end up having people say they're gonna be in first place because they got Kenny Pickett. You know, it is what it is. We'll see how it turns out. Is Kenny Pickett who they think he is? I have seen limited evidence of that. Yes, he had a couple of nice drives at the end of the season in games where one touchdown might have been scored. I don't know. I feel like a lot of context is getting missed out of with that. I don't remember watching Kenny Pickett for an entire game last year being like, oh, wow, this dude has something. Like, I have at least said that about, like, Trevor Lawrence. But Kenny Pickett has had a couple of throws where I'm like, oh, yeah, that was nice. But, like, other than that, I don't know how anybody could be that sold on him with the limited amount of film that we've really seen on him.
Yeah. And again, it isn't like he went crazy at the University of Pittsburgh. I mean, he was okay. He wasn't bad.
He was a one-year wonder at Pitt.
He was all right. All right.
He had like 2,000 pass yards those other 3 seasons.
All right. Do you think the Browns take a huge leap in 2023?
I would say there are some Browns on here who I think can make an improvement up from last year, right? I think Grant Delpit and David Bell are probably the two. Grant, because I felt like Grant found what his niche is going to be in the NFL. And for a lot of players who were great in college, but not athletic enough to be the same level of greatness in the NFL, they struggle to find that niche, right? Where they have to just focus in on 1 or 2 things that they're going to be really good at in the NFL. What we found out last year is that we found those things with Grant Delpit, where it's like, hey, he's going to be good in the box. He's going to be a good run defender, a special run defender, I would think, like very good at anticipating things. When you don't have to give him that much space, he'll be fine. David Bell's another one, because we were pretty high on David Bell up until he got injured in camp. And I just don't think he ever made up the time for that. Now that he has a full offseason to kind of get the chemistry with DeSean Watson, he's not guessing who's going to be the quarterback week 1. He's not guessing how the offense is going to change. You know, he has a stable year to kind of get things under his belt, and I expect him to be a little bit more improved than he was last year. There's more on that, but I'll make y'all watch the video for that.
What about Browns do you think folks are sleeping on?
I think what Jerome Ford is an example of somebody who people are just sleeping on because they just don't feel confident he's going to be able to fulfill the role. I think, one, there's an overestimation going on what his role is going to be. I don't think he's probably not even going to be the second leading rusher when it comes to rushing attempts on this team. I expect that to be DeSean Watson. So he's really in a very relegated, think about how you would think of the third leading rusher on the Ravens. It's kind of what Jerome Ford's going to be. So it's not that big of a deal that he's not super experienced, and I don't think they're going to need a veteran to take care of that, because even the pass protection stuff, it's just not going to be as important for Jerome Ford. Given DeSean Watson's style, he's not a statue back there, right? So he's going to want Jerome Ford to kind of leak out and run a route more often than he's going to ask him to pass protect. Juan Thornhill is on the other side of guys I feel like are slept on, not because people are down on them per se, but because other signings have kind of pushed our attention away from them. And I think Juan is probably one of the most important signings that we made, because he's going to be the voice back there to kind of get this secondary to not make the big mistakes. They're still going to make plenty of mistakes this year. There's a lot of Joe Woods that they're just going to have to wash off during the course of the season. But having Juan Thornhill, also getting Ronnie McLeod, those two veterans back there in the safety position, those are going to be guys who are going to help you from making the big mistake, and that's what you have to avoid. You can make the little mistakes, the mistakes that extend a drive every once in a while, but the big mistakes, like what we did at the end of the Jets game last year, those have to be fixed, and Juan's brought in to make sure we don't have those anymore.
All right, before we go to break, 3 Browns with the most to lose in 2023, according to Dog Pound Daily. Number 3, Left tackle, Jedrick Wills. Number 2 guy we talked about, Grant Delpit. Number 1, they say Donovan Peoples-Jones. And if you say they have the most to lose, they also have a whole lot to gain if it swings the other way.
Yeah, I don't really think that Jedrick has much to lose this year because he's kind of who he is, right? I don't think he's going to play so much better this year that he's going to become like a franchise left tackle that we're going to want to give a bunch of money to. There's still going to be concerns based on what those 4 years were, but he's also not proven to be good enough to where some team's going to give him a bunch of money to play left tackle no matter what he does this year, whether he has the same year he had last year or not. Left tackles are just rare. You just don't have a lot of those walking around. So he's probably going to get paid. Grant Delpit, a lot to lose there for Grant, right? Because a lot to gain, a lot to lose. He's found his niche. He's kind of like in the last year where you can have hope that he's going to figure this out in the long term and pay him and to stay at Cleveland Browns. So that's on the table for him. Donovan Peoples-Jones, I don't know. Like, I feel like even if he doesn't have that many yards this year, you could kind of explain it and he'll be able to get what he's worth in the open market next year. I just don't know what his future is with the Browns.
Yeah, I agree with you. And if he has a big year, he could get a huge payday on the open market as well. Quincy, Carey, and I can step aside, take a quick time out. We'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico. I want to discuss the NBA versus NFL contracts. It's pretty insane, the gap between player contracts within the NBA. I see constantly average players in the NBA getting mega deals. For an example, I've seen a player get 3 years, $105 million, and he's just a solid player. In the NFL, that type of money will net you an elite franchise caliber player. Why do you think that is? Is it the smaller roster size for NBA compared to the huge roster of an NFL team? By the way, for context, NBA revenue in 2022 was $10 billion. NFL revenue was $18 billion in 2022. Thanks.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Quincy, the roster size is part of it. The other thing is back in the late 70s, the NBA was in trouble and they started marketing stars. So they kind of started marketing the game towards the players, and the players decided, we're going to kind of take control of that. and it swung that way.
And it's a numbers game too. Well, to add to your point, it's truly a numbers game because even in that example, I don't know if those revenue numbers are true. Those aren't the same ones that I have, but even then, roughly you could say the NFL makes about 2 times the amount of money as the NBA. But the thing is, the NFL has 4 times the amount of players.
Yep.
So those players who are getting that chunk of what is less money are getting a lot more of it because there's only 450 people in the NBA at a given time. There's 1,696 NFL football players that are getting paid in a percentage of that. So that it's just a numbers game, right? If you look at it, because the NBA, you need 11 guys on the team at most in the NBA. And in the NFL, it's 53 plus practice squad.
Right.
So,
you have 12, and then I think you can go up to three two-way players that you technically pay. So I think it's 15 contracts. But yeah, but
and then those guys could be two-way players, G League. Those are different contract rules. So
and the other thing is it's a percentage of the revenues that go toward them. So it's divided up. But there was a conscious effort by the NBA to market to the stars. The NFL is just now starting to. The players are just now starting to take control of that. Look at all the craziness with the guaranteed contract with Deshaun Watson.
Well, and it's like it's also the factor of how much can an NBA player impact his game versus an NFL player.
Yep.
The most impactful player on the NFL team is a quarterback. And there's like a whole half of the game, well, whole half plus special teams that quarterback has no impact on. You look at basketball, the guys who are getting paid a bunch of money, they're on the court playing defense and offense. Like they're just a huge part of what's going to make a team successful or not, that they're just going to be worth more in their cap situations. It's going to be easier to justify giving a basketball player that cap. Like we've never talked about, like we talk about it with quarterbacks all the time. Oh, can you win a championship giving a quarterback 25% of your salary cap? Did we ever know what LeBron James's percentage of the salary cap was in Cleveland? It never mattered. It never did. Like, I promise you it didn't. Because that's not a conversation in the NBA. You know that having a LeBron James is a lot better for your team than not having a LeBron James. In football, there's a little bit more math you could do to it. I still think having a good quarterback, much better chances of winning than not. But it's not the same impact where it's both sides of the floor and there's less players, like significantly less players, less like 4 times less players playing in the league in total. So twice the revenue, but in order for NFL players to get the same money that NBA players are getting, they would have to make 4 times the money that the NBA makes. And I don't even know if there's enough money out there for that to happen.
All right. Andrew Berry talked about the Browns defense and the changes that they made.
Our sport, it's not all about talent. We feel like we have the right players in place. We feel like we have the right skill sets, but it's ultimately about how they come together as a unit, both in terms of complementing one another's skill set, really the communication and discipline. And that's something that I know that Coach Schwartz and the defensive staff, they're working hard on this spring and into the fall. We're encouraged by this group. We're excited by this group, but we still have a lot of work to do, and we'll see how that progresses as we get into training camp.
Kind of interesting. Again, you mentioned communication, discipline, and those were kind of things that were lacking from that side of the football last year.
Yeah. I mean, the communication stuff it's been huge for the last 3 years. We've been talking about miscommunication on defense. Hopefully that's not the same anymore with these guys. But yeah, there are things about this defense going to have to change. You're going to have to be a little bit more disciplined. They're going to have to be not just discipline when it comes to like penalties. I know a lot of people like associate discipline and penalties and think that or assume that I'm saying that when I say discipline. When I say discipline, I'm saying like trust that you're supposed to be where you're supposed to be. You know what I mean? Because a lot of what happened last year was somebody was where they were supposed to be and decided, nah, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm about to go over here because it looks like that's about to open up. So, a lot of that needs to happen as well.
That's the Bill Belichick do your job comment. All right. This is from BrownsWire.com. Browns veterans on the roster bubble as we get set to go into training camp. They say defensive line, Perrion Winfrey, linebacker, Jacob Phillips, and cornerback, A.J. Green. And again, I can't necessarily argue with any of them. Anytime A.J. Green has been asked to play, he usually plays pretty well.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that any of these guys are really that much on the bubble. Perrion, 3rd-round pick last year, has had his issues. Like, if he has something else pop up legally, then he's probably going to pop up on that bubble. But if he stays clean and doesn't have any issues with, like, management, he should be fine just off of potential alone. Same thing with Jacob Phillips. He's in that last year of his deal, so he'll probably make the team. And they kind of need the depth at, like, Will and Sam linebacker. He'll never play middle linebacker again, I hope. But, like, Will and Sam, he could do that. A.J. Green, again, another one. The only issue with A.J. is that he doesn't play the slot. And they're so deep at outside corner that they might see him as something that they don't need anymore. And he's not necessarily somebody with enough name value that you could trade. So he might end up being cut because of that. But they're all three fine. Like, I could see them sticking in the league somewhere. It's just will be here. You can question that maybe off of fit.
Who do you think is the most significant addition in the offseason to the Browns this year?
It's probably going to be Zadarius Smith, right? Or like somebody who can get that caliber of pressure on defenses. You can also argue Jim Schwartz in there if you want to go like more coaching wise. I think it's going to be a combination of like Jim Schwartz Dalvin Tomlinson and Zadarius Smith, like having those three are going to be very important for you, as well as like a Juan Thornhill, as well as like a Ronnie McLeod. Like the wholesale changes on the defense. I think it's hard to point out one of them, because with just one of those changes, I don't think you fix the problem. But making all of those changes, I do think you make significant steps towards fixing that problem.
Yeah, I would go with Schwartz, but to your point, I don't think Schwartz can play his defense unless you go get Zadarius Smith and Dalvin Tomlinson and even Maurice Hurst. And he needs the bodies. He needs the the guys that have done it at the NFL level to be able and go and try to play in the offensive. That's his defense. Let's go play in the offensive backfield and make life miserable at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and he wants to be able to get that pressure, to be able to take advantage of it with his coverage schemes. And also, you want to be able to stop the run when you play the style of defense that he does, because if you're in that wide nine, you can't stop the run, or you don't have good enough defensive tackle play to where the linebackers can kind of fill those gaps, then you're going to have a lot of issues. So that's going to be very important for this team too. I think the scheme is important, but again, you got to get the players to fit the scheme. And I think it's just going to be an overall, the wholesale improvement will be what's best. Like, if the defense can just get from 31 to 15, that'll make a massive difference on this team's ability to win football games.
I agree with you. Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, back to the offensive side of the ball. Talk a little bit about the wide receivers. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to Go Forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. TryC has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide TryC students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. TryC, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. This one from Pro Football Focus. Wide receivers primed for bigger roles in 2023. They say Elijah Moore of the Browns is. Browns have a role waiting for him, and quarterback DeSean Watson is capable of taking advantage of it. If it doesn't happen this year for Moore, it's probably not going to. Quincy, I don't know about that, but it is, year three is when you usually get a breakout. The thing that's working a little bit against Moore is he's coming into a new system with a new quarterback, so it may take a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would look at it like this. Elijah Moore has a specific skill set. And what is necessary for him to play at his highest level, right? He's really good at those intermediate to deep routes. And he's a really fast and really twitchy athlete. So, yeah, you could throw in some screen stuff, and I think they will do plenty of that this year. But also when it comes to the intermediate to deep stuff, we talk about quarterback play being important for that, and obviously it is, because that's a difficult throw to make for most quarterbacks. But I think another important factor is your offensive line play. If you don't have top-level offensive line play, you're not going to necessarily be able to eat that much in that intermediate to deep space. And the Browns having an average pocket time over the last 3 seasons of 2.9 seconds, that's going to give him a lot of time and a lot of room to work back there. Also, DeSean Watson being somebody who likes to extend plays and hold on to the ball for a little bit longer is going to give him more opportunities to do what he's really good at. So I think those are going to be very important things for him going forward. And I think that's why the fit here in Cleveland is going to be good. I think DeSean is invested in making sure that Elijah Moore has a breakout this year. I think the offense is invested in it, and I think also Elijah Moore is invested in it. So it should work out. We'll see, though. We'll see during the season. It's easy to look good in shorts and T-shirts, and then that changes when you have pads on. But right now, I think the plan is for everybody to do what they can to make sure that Elijah becomes a real threat for this offense during the season, because that can open up a lot of things for Amari Cooper, for Donovan Peoples-Jones, and even Cedric Tillman.
Yeah, that was I was getting ready to ask you what he does. How anxious are you to see how Kevin Stefanski utilizes his tight ends? because Deshaun Watson is usually really good at finding his tight ends, especially on seam routes and the like.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to have to do anything different than he's done in past years. But the volume that you're going to be able to hit these tight ends is going to be much higher because there's more threats on the outside, right? I think you could take away David Njoku very easily when you're not really worried about Donovan Peoples-Jones burning you on the outside, and they don't have a one wide receiver that you're super worried about killing you, right? Like Amari Cooper, as good as he is, he's not necessarily somebody who's going to run a bunch of 9 routes and stretch the field both horizontally and vertically. So with Elijah Moore, with Marquise Goodwin, when you have both of those guys out on the field at the same time, now you're worried about being stretched vertically, which is going to push those safeties away from the center of the field and away from the seams of the field, which gives a lot more space for your tight ends to work. That's why Deshaun likes having those deep threats on the roster. You look at who he's had on the roster in his career. He's had Will Fuller. He's had Mike Williams in college. He's had Brandon Cooks. He has guys who can stretch the field out and open up that intermediate middle part for him. And this is why I expect guys like David Bell, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and David Njoku to kind of eat. They're not going to have to do much different, but the way defenses are going to cover them going to change because of the threats that they can put on the outside, and even throw like Amari Cooper in the slot. Like, you could do a lot of things that are going to take the attention away from those tight ends and allow them to be, deep downfield check downs almost, where you could just get the ball to them very easily. And Deshaun's very good at finding guys in those soft spots of zones when the time comes.
So Amari Cooper, fully healthy, getting ready for his first full season with Deshaun Watson as the quarterback. Browns Twitter releases this video of Amari Cooper.
Cleveland Browns are in agreement with the Dallas Cowboys on a trade for Amari Cooper, the 4-time Pro Bowler, one of the best receivers in the NFL.
He got 100 yards back-to-back. The first time. Now, he's the first receiver to do that.
When I coached Amari in high school, he was one of the most mature route runners that I had ever seen in high school. Him and Larry Fitzgerald, right up there.
Looks, he throws, touchdown! Amari Cooper, he was wide open! Nobody covered him!
All right, that rock, you see him running the route? Look at the spin, it's like, look, oh!
Caught it, touchdown! Cooper's out there, he caught it! At the 15-yard line, he caught it! What a catch by Amari Cooper! Looking, throwing, Cooper's open, he's up in the air, and he caught it! In the end zone, touchdown, Amari Cooper!
And Quincy, Cooper had a pretty good year. Even with Deshaun Watson struggling, you could see the chemistry. And the thing that I keep coming back to, he had a core muscle injury. He needed surgery. You don't just go and have surgery on a core muscle unless it's pretty significant.
Yeah, he was really good for us last year, and he was even fighting through injury through most of last year too. So you're excited to see what's going to happen with him in a full healthy year with Deshaun Watson. We saw the chemistry was there in a couple of the games last year with Deshaun. You can only imagine it's going to get better as they work all season together and during training camp. So yeah, there's a lot to be excited about with Amari Cooper. And if you listen to Amari Cooper, he's very excited to have a guy like Deshaun Watson there. He feels like he can finally not only be in a situation where he's going to have the quarterback play that he needs to be as successful as he's wanted to be and get the numbers that he's always wanted in his career, right? 1,400 yards to kind of cement himself in that Larry Fitzgerald category. But he also feels like he has the opportunity in his offense to get the targets that he needs to get to that point too.
So this is also kind of interesting. So this is most receiving touchdowns in the red zone last year. The number one was Travis Kelce. He had 10. Diggs, Kirk, and McKinnon, a running back, tied for second with 7. Then tied for 5th, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Amari Cooper, Ayuk, and Cole Kmet. So Amari Cooper again. Jacoby Brissett as a quarterback for 11 games, Deshaun Watson for only 6, fighting through a core muscle injury, tied for 5th most red zone touchdowns. That's a hugely underrated stat, red zone touchdowns.
Amari Cooper in general is kind of underrated. Like, I feel like we don't talk about him as if he's one of the better wide receivers in the league. And I hear people go, oh, yeah, they got Amari Cooper. And it's like, oh, that's a big deal. Like, having Amari Cooper is a big deal. Everywhere he's gone, he's been good, and everywhere he's left, the wide receiving play has dipped significantly, right? It's not been the same in the Raiders since he's left until they added Devontae Adams, and then it hasn't been the same in Dallas since he's left. Like, he's been a huge addition anywhere he's been, but nobody really talks about him in the way that he probably should be.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Underappreciated, and what he did with banged up last year. I want to see him healthy for a full season. Quincy Carrier, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Quincy Carrier, make sure you check him out on Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Always really good stuff. Check out his show. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Case Kinnamon, Dog Pound Daily, straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. TryC has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide TryC students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. TryC, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Browns getting ready for training camp in a couple of weeks. If you're wondering what some of the players are doing, take a look at this. DeSean Watson working out with Elijah Moore. Looks like it's the indoor facility at the University of Miami. You see the U, the Hurricanes U, down there. Pretty good throw as well. So Moore and DeSean Watson working out in Miami, trying to get ready for training camp a couple of weeks away. That from Brad Stainbrook tweeting that out, so I want to give credit to him. So welcome in Casey Kinnamon, Dog Pound Daily. Casey, it's good to see. Guys aren't taking any time off. They want to get at it, work to be done.
Yeah, you love to see it. And that is a relationship that we need to see built upon is Elijah Moore and DeSean Watson. You know, there was a reason they went and got Moore to be more dynamic, and to see him and Watson kind of working out the kinks before they even head to Greenbrier, that is something you love to see.
Yeah, let's. This is kind of interesting as well. So Sam Acho on ESPN from SportsCenter talking about what he expects from the Browns in 2023.
Well, I think the Browns will surprise some people, but those division games will be tough early. You alluded to it. 2 of the first games are against division opponents. Well, 3 of the first 4 are against teams in their division. But think about this. DeSean Watson has a full offseason to prepare. Not only that, they also have the Hall of Fame game. They're reporting earlier than anyone else. Them and the Jets reporting earlier than anyone else, so they have time to catch up. The first 10 games of last season, the Browns were 3-7. Well, fast forward, DeSean Watson comes back week 11. They finished off 4-3 over their last 7 games. He was 3-3 as a starter. He got more comfortable. You could see it as the game and the season went on. And so I'm excited about them offensively. In addition to that, they have defensive additions they've made that'll help that team fare better than people expect.
I think you and I would agree Cincinnati the best team in this division. I think there's an argument now between Baltimore and Cleveland. Where would you put Cleveland with Baltimore? Are they ahead? Are they even? Or are they below?
Yeah, I put them even with Baltimore, but there's a higher ceiling, in my opinion, for Cleveland, just because DeSean Watson in 2020, before he was out all of 2021, he led the NFL in passing yards. He was second in passer rating. And so if you get prime DeSean Watson, a full season DeSean Watson, not a DeSean Watson that's missed a season and a half, right? A season and some change, then you have an ability to have a much better offense, including Nick Chubb in the backfield, who had his best season rushing the ball last year as well.
And Casey, I agree with him. The national media is kind of starting to swing that way a little bit, and we'll see. I don't think there's two things. I don't think that they need DeSean Watson to be, as good as he was in 2020. If he gets there, great. They need him to be a guy that can, here, you've got the ball, go win games. And the more important thing is, it isn't the Hall of Fame game. It's the additional practices.
Yeah, you might see him on the sidelines during that game, but he's not going to be dressed. So I don't think that really plays into it. But yeah, that extra time, that's just more time to get the kinks out, And I think you're seeing this trend where a lot of guys who are just straight up analysts, they're reluctant to put their chips on the Browns, but a lot of these former players turn analysts, they're all kind of naming the Browns as the dark horse candidate. And that's because of the talent of this roster. And just like he said, Cincinnati should be viewed as the favorite going into it. And having the Browns even with Baltimore, I think that's fair. But the Browns ceiling is the same as the Bengals ceiling, and that's because of DeSean Watson. If he is able to get to that 2020 level, that's their ceiling. They don't need him to be that to be a playoff team. They just need him to be able to be efficient and run this offense and just facilitate, because there's talent all over the field in this Browns offense.
You're right, and I agree with you. They need him to be like he was in 2020 if they want to be Super Bowl contenders or conference championship contenders. Agree with you wholeheartedly. This is from Pro Football Network. Which of these offenses could be in the top 10 by the end of the season? They say the Browns are one of them. They're currently ranked 21st, according to Pro Football Network. They also say the Jaguars, who are ranked 11th, the Giants, who are ranked 18th, and the Packers, who are ranked 23rd. I'm not sure who does the rankings. Is this kind of a dartboard, Wheel of Fortune type of thing? But I don't know how you look at the Browns and rank that offense 21st with arguably the best offensive line, the best running back, an underrated wide receiver one in Amari Cooper, and DeSean Watson. If you know football, that doesn't add up.
Yeah, when you look at those four teams in particular, I like what the Jaguars have. But you wouldn't trade the Browns skill players for Jacksonville skill players. Now you would trade the Jacksonville Jaguars division. You would much rather play in the South. But as far as like the players, you wouldn't make that trade. On paper, it all comes down to four. If this team's going to realize its upper bound limits, it comes down to DeSean Watson. But that should absolutely be the goal, is to be a top 10 scoring offense. I'm not talking about yardage or how many yards he throws for, or even Nick Chubb. Just scoring offense, that's what matters. And for the Browns and for Stefanski's hope, they better be a top 10 offense, because that's what the talent dictates that they have on the field.
The other thing is I know fans are not crazy with the way the offense was called last year. I think that's going to change a little bit as well, because you do have the ability to be more explosive. I think the play calling was a factor of they knew they didn't have the explosive offense that they wanted.
Absolutely. And what they've been doing since Stefanski got there is this phone booth offense. They're basically perpetually in the red zone, the way they were calling plays, because they didn't have that explosivity, that guy to take the top off or a guy to get quick, easy yards. Well, they've added all that. You go get a Marquise Goodwin, you go get an Elijah Moore, you go get a second tight end that Watson's comfortable with. That all adds up, and now all these pieces are in place, so they're not just forced to play one certain way. They can kind of be whatever they need to be, and that's what it takes to be an explosive offense in the NFL. You know, teams are going to take stuff away, but what's your second punch? What can you go to? Well, the Browns have everything open to them now because of the personnel they have on the field.
All right, this is from Dawg Pound Daily. 3 significant questions for the Browns at tight end. 1, can DeSean Watson rely on the tight ends in the red zone? 2022 Njoku 12 receptions, 20 targets. Bryant 3 receptions, 8 targets. Akins with the Texans 6 receptions, 11 targets. Can David Njoku remain healthy, and who is the Browns' tight end number 2 is question number 1. I think the question is, do they have to rely on tight ends? And the answer is probably not, because you do have Amari Cooper, you do have potentially Cedric Tillman, you do have Donovan Peoples-Jones. Those are bigger targets. That's what you want in the red zone.
Yeah, and even someone like Cooper, who's not a big target, but he's incredibly efficient in the red zone because of his ability to be precise in his route running. But it's also something with David Njoku that all 4 of his touchdowns last year came in the red zone, and I still feel they haven't really figured out his niche in that, because when the field condenses like that, his ability to high point a football, they don't use that near enough. And I'm not a huge proponent of the back pylon fade. Teams seem to go to it too often. But when you have a guy who can do what he does, high pointing the ball, it's good to have that in your bag, But like you said, they don't have to rely on it. But I think if they need to, they have a couple players who can do things at that position.
Yeah, and the other thing is the versatility they've added in Moore and Goodwin. You mentioned Cooper. There isn't 1 or 2 weapons now. You should have 5, which is what elite teams have. They have 5 weapons in the red zone.
Yeah, and we're not even talking about Watson's ability to use his legs in the red zone. I mean, he's probably going to get 2 or 3 naturally, just seeing something and going and getting it because he's that type of athlete. So I think you're going to see all kinds of creativity. You might even see some quick game to Elijah Moore in that area. But yeah, everything's on the table. They have a lot of options, way more than they've had in years past. That's for sure.
Casey Kinnamon and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We'll continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dawg Pound Daily. This is from NFL.com, predicting each of the AFC teams' non-quarterback MVP. Pretty easy one for the Browns. They go with Myles Garrett. They say it seems as if something fluky or unexpected always keeps him from putting it all together. The Mason Rudolph incident, a COVID-19 bout in 2020, late season injury in 2021, car crash last year. Assuming the bad breaks are behind him, Garrett could be poised for consistent greatness this season at age 27. The other thing I think helps a whole lot is Jim Schwartz as the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, if you're going to pick a player to be the non-quarterback MVP, Myles Garrett's a pretty strong one. But yeah, he's never been set up like this before. And that's not throwing shade on Olivier Vernon or Jadeveon Clowney. They are starting caliber defensive ends, but they're not the pass rusher that Zadarius Smith is, or Ogbo for that matter. He's a top 25 guy in this league as far as pass rush win rates, and he's never had those kind of running mates. And then you add the fact he's got Jim Schwartz dialing it all up, and he's never been set up like this before. And I don't want to say, something ridiculous like, well, Myles Garrett could get 20 sacks, but Myles Garrett might be able to get 20 sacks this season. If he can stay healthy, I think that's definitely in the range of outcomes for him.
The other thing is just the mindset. I mean, Jim Schwartz has not backed away or hidden from the fact that he's going to tell the defensive lineman to get after the quarterback. If you're telling Myles Garrett to get after the quarterback and don't worry about much else, I'm not going to want to play quarterback for too many. I mean, that is a physical freak of nature that has one thing in mind right now. See quarterback, get quarterback.
Yeah, and you add that to the fact that if the Browns' offensive plans work and they're able to get into these leads and teams are forced to throw to get back in the game, ooh, that's a scary place to be when you got Darius Smith-Ogbo and then Myles Garrett coming at you. I mean, and then like Schwartz is going to be aggressive. He's going to be ultra aggressive with his pass rushers. They're going to pin their ears back. And if you're Myles Garrett, that's exactly what you want to do.
Yeah, and he was smiling the whole way when he was talking about what it's been like on that defense. All right, Alan Hahn from ESPN this morning. What keeps you up at night if you are the Cincinnati Bengals?
Hoping that the offensive line concerns that they have had over the last couple of years has been solved by Orlando Brown Jr. and giving him $16 million a year and also stealing him, taking him away from Kansas City. Could they finally have resolved the issues there and make sure that Joe Burrow doesn't get hit more than any other quarterback in the league?
Friend of the show, Orlando Brown Jr., a lot riding on him this year in Cincinnati.
And Casey, that is a very valid point about Orlando Brown. But can you tell me who Chidi Day, Awuzie, Cam Taylor-Britt, Nick Scott, and Dax Hill are? Not a boy band. Can you tell me who that is? Who those guys are?
Yeah, that's the secondary for the Bengals right there. And I like Cam Taylor-Britt coming out of Nebraska, but
that would scare me. If I'm that, who do we have? Where's Jesse Bates? Where's Von Bell?
Yeah, massive question marks back there. They moved on from some really good safeties, and now they're going to find out if their depth was worth it. This is a big gamble for them with everything they have riding to move on from veterans like that. Now, I know those guys were going to command a high contract, but you would have thought they had at least kept one of them, to kind of work a Dax Hill in or something. But, yeah, there's going to be a lot of fresh faces back there, and they're going to get tested early, that's for sure, especially game one.
Yeah, and points to them. They've been on the verge of the Super Bowl twice, two at once, on the verge of it another time. So defensive coordinator Lou Amarello has done a great job. But man, if that's my secondary, I'm like, can we vote? Can we vote on this, please?
Yeah, that should be keeping them up at night. That should have been the one.
I agree. All right, same thing, staying in the division. Alan Hahn on the 2023 Baltimore Ravens.
Is Lamar Jackson set up to have his best season ever?
I think so. And I think, we can talk about the health aspect of it, but every team has that concern about staying healthy. Yes, this team has got a lot of guys who are a bit of damaged goods, so you want to make sure that these guys, more than anyone, you have the concerns about. But Lamar Jackson got paid. He's happy. He's relaxed. He's home. He's where he wanted to be anyway. He's all set. And by the way, the questions about whether or not he could be more in a passing offense, let's remember his last year in college at Louisville, he was in a pro offense. He wanted to show he could play in the pocket and be that kind of a passer. And I thought he did. I thought he looked really good in that set. So he can do it. He's got the weapons to help him do it. And I really think it's going to be a big year for him. He has been in MVP conversations before, not just in the year he won it. It's the injuries that caught him as well. So can he stay healthy? Can the players around him stay healthy? All those ifs, if they all stay on the field, they can be a great team in the AFC.
Casey, if you're going to play from the pocket as Lamar Jackson, I'm going to take that. And the point about Louisville, there's no South Florida on his schedule this year.
For me, it just feels like a square peg in a round hole. Like you want to make him, let him be what he is. Right. That's where he's his most dangerous, playing on the edge and scaring you with his legs. That's what opens up the middle of the field. If you're going to tell me they're going to play in these certain parameters, if you're an opponent of the Ravens, I think you take that. If he's going to beat you from within the pocket, okay. I just don't think that's where he's the most effective. So, and I think this might be a lot of hedging. I think we're looking ahead and looking at what Monken has done in the past, and I think they're going to have a specialized plan. I don't think it's going to be so easy as this is just going to be a 7-step drop back, and he's going to be within the pocket. That to me, that's just short-sighted. Why would you take away the thing that makes him the most dangerous? But if you want to do that, have at it.
Well, yeah, I think his legs and his athleticism, and again, he can beat you with his arm, but if you're going to tell me he's going to try to beat me with his arm consistently, I'm taking that. I'll take that as a defensive coordinator. That's the lesser of two evils by far.
Yeah, that's the thing that scares me the least. I'll tell you that. What he's able to do with his legs opens up everything else, and it's because of that, his dynamic ability to burn you with his legs, that it causes defenders to be in no man's land at times. But if they take that away on purpose, man, to me that's just malpractice.
Casey Kinnamon, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Casey Kinnamon, make sure you check him out. Dog Pound Daily, always really good stuff. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports4CLE.